everybody, my fellow Web3 citizens. Welcome back to another episode of the Invalid Podcast. I'm still your host, Eugene Crypto MC, and today I'm proud to be joined by Mass. He's head of business development from Devote, and Devote is a governance infrastructure built for DAOs, DeFi projects, and NFT communities. It is backed by Berachain, you know what is it? And now it's expanding and supporting several EVM networks and Solana and even Bitcoin ecosystem. Sounds fascinating. So their aim in motto is very simple: to make decentralized governance seamless, accessible, and efficient. And of course, just to philosophy of decentralization, I'm going to be with Lydia and Mass without. So Mass, thank you for joining our Valid podcast.
Eugene, thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to be here.
So let's start with understanding the problem, why Devote has been created. So what problem did we face with DAO voting so it made you decide to create Devote?
Yeah, so I've been around the crypto and blockchain space since around 2020. I started at a project called Pickle Finance, if you've ever heard of it. It was one of the first sort of food-based token yield aggregators. I could sort of wax lyrical about my time there, but it was a lot of fun. But we've always had a problem, I think, in DeFi and crypto around decentralized governance. It's like a core operating pillar of why crypto DeFi exists in the first place. But I think we have a lot of voter apathy when it comes to actually engaging in governance. Now, there's multiple reasons for that. But what we saw is the infrastructure and the tooling within decentralized governance is pretty limited. There's one kind of big monopoly player, happy to name their name, Snapshot, who's kind of takes up all the space. And we wanted to make governance easier across all chains. We wanted to make sure that anyone could access it for a much cheaper price, but also one where, as an incumbent, we can kind of innovate and do things differently. So we saw a real opportunity to kind of come in this space and shake it up.
Right. Could you elaborate a bit, if it's not a secret, your relations with Berachain, how it is to be backed by Berachain?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So as I mentioned, I worked for Pickle Finance back in 2020 all the way through to sort of 2022-ish. I was helping out with marketing there. And the founder and CEO was Larry the Cucumber. He ended up joining after Pickle Finance. He ended up joining Berachain in a dev relationship role. Pickle Finance unfortunately kind of had to close down because yield aggregators became basically commoditized. But he ended up then joining Berachain, and we had a good relationship, so we kept kind of talking. And at that time, I had joined what our project was previously called, which was QuickSnap. And QuickSnap was essentially a voting incentivization feature built on top of Snapshot. And so we were talking about Berachain, and they were about to go into figuring out, okay, how are they going to offer off-chain governance to all the projects that launch on Berachain. And we thought, okay, well, we've already got sort of this incentivization feature. We know how decentralized governance works. We know how to create the tool. And so we just did it for Berachain, and we labeled it Beravote. So Beravote still exists. It's under our portfolio. And yeah, we launched with them with the backing of the foundation. And that was a really, really wild ride that started sort of March last year. And we've been going ever since, even since launch, which was sort of like February, March this year. So yeah, we've now rebanded because we've decided to go multi-chain, and we can, I guess, talk about that in a few minutes. But we've decided to go multi-chain, and so that's how Devote kind of existed. But as I said, we still offer a lot of interesting products on Berachain with our core Beravote product.
Definitely, it's quite interesting to go on to read the documentation by links in the description to understand how the ecosystem of Devote has been. That's the topic of my next question. So before we talk, I'd love to ask you about the competitive advantages. I hate the word competitive in Web3 because we're too small. We collaborators, we're builders, we're inhabitants. Web3, we're not competitors. But nonetheless, we have to understand the difference between Devote and other decentralized voting platforms.
Yes.
What do you say on that?
Yeah, well, so I mean, I completely agree with your point on the fact that this ecosystem is one that kind of is founded on collaboration. That's why I've stayed in the space. I mean, our biggest competitor now is used to be a collaborator. As I said, we built an incentivization feature on top of Snapshot. So those are just kind of the Legos that go around, and eventually, you know, maybe your collaborators become your competitors at some stage. But I do completely agree that we're such a nascent market that competitive advantage is a funny thing to say, but I'm also willing to kind of point out some of the advantages that we have here at Devote. So a couple of things: lower costs. We are half the price for as compared to say Snapshot for a network. We make it sure it's very, very easy for the smaller chains, especially to be able to afford to integrate a governance solution for their ecosystem. So that's a huge competitive advantage there. Minor things like I really like our UX and our experience. You can actually directly vote on something and also comment within the space itself. So instead of going to a separate forum, we've actually sort of centralized everything into one web UI, so you can vote and comment directly there, and the conversation can kind of change. We also involve we've kind of talked about this, but incentivization. So we actually incentivize what you can as a project. Say if you create a space, you can actually incentivize the vote. So if you have a really important vote coming up and you need to meet quorum, you can actually incentivize people who own your token or your NFT to vote. So that's a feature that no one else has. I mentioned we do a couple of things on BeraVote. So we have an API that allows launchpads to integrate one-click governance solution. So if you're launching a token, say Eugene token, and you wanted to create a governance space, if you're launching that through a launchpad, there's we have an API where it's a one-click. That governance space then gets set up directly on Devote or BeraVote, depending on the chain you're on, and then you have that space ready to use, and anyone who has your token can then vote on any proposals you put on that space. And then finally, we also offer white labeled solutions. So I mentioned BeraVote before. That's all in BeraChain branding. No other chain is white labeled at the moment, but we do offer that solution if people want to kind of own and make it seem like to their ecosystem that they own the governance kind of ecosystem that they have. So yeah, and we've got obviously new product features rolling out all the time. The biggest one for us is on-chain execution. That's the kind of next big hurdle for us. So off-chain voting, on-chain execution, keeping the fees low, but then also making sure that these votes actually have something that ties back to the blockchain itself. So yeah, we've got a lot of things going on at the moment.
Well, good job. You've solved the advantages of the vote. So probably all listeners must come and see what you guys have made. So what should we know about the size of the current Devote ecosystem, and explain steps for any inhabitants, interested individuals, how to join?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So we have over 500 projects on across our chains on Devote and BeraVote, with basically like nearly 50 networks integrated. So those are all the main chains. We kind of split out Devote by EVM, BTC, and then various other kind of non-EVM chains. So on the EVM side, I think we have close to like 48 something networks. So it's I'd say 90% of the chains that people are operating on we have. But if you are a network that wants to have off-chain governance for projects, or just governance generally for projects on your ecosystem, the easiest way to get involved is to reach out to us. We can obviously share contact details or whatever, Eugene, later, but easiest way definitely is for people to reach out to us directly. If you're a project, you can easily set up a space if we support the network you operate on. So if you have multi-sig wallet or just a wallet yourself, you can actually just set up a space within 5 minutes. And so anyone then with your token can vote on any proposals you have. You can incentivize them. You can use all the features that we have. If a network you're on is not supported, then reach out to us. We find that actually most of the time we have projects reaching out to us going, hey, how can we get, governance for our project? Current solutions are not suiting us. What ends up happening is we end up getting quite a few projects as a part of networks, who then we kind of we work together to lobby the network to actually sort of integrate us. So that's pretty cool. And then for individuals, if you're a part of a DAO and your DAO doesn't vote, then definitely lobby your projects, your DAOs, to get a space set up on Devo. As I said, very, very simple. And once it's set up, it's there. It's yours as the project, and it's yours as the DAO. You can create spaces and vote on whatever you want.
Well, good answer. This is a no-brainer for me that as a part of your job, you've been exploring the current needs of probably all the DAOs on the planet. I don't know how many DAOs but of course you do understand their current problems. So going beyond voting, what are the main problems that DAO founders, DAO members face right now in the end of 2025 from your experience viewpoint?
Yeah. So I mean, we talked about collaboration. We talk a lot to DAOs and projects across ecosystems, and there's three things that I kind of see that are big problems at the moment. One is funding. Obviously, funding is really tough in this environment, so I don't think that's news to anyone. And I think especially through like decentralized fundraising models, they haven't really taken off either. I remember the first kind of DAOs that were springing up, people would just they bought people were buying like books and like artifacts and stuff through DAOs, and that sort of activity has really died down as the innovation has become less novel. So I'm really interested to see how DAOs can kind of utilize decentralized finance to kind of help with funding in this environment, but we're not seeing anything kind of come through yet. Interoperability, number two, is huge. I think what we're seeing is, every day, I see new chains being launched. Berachain is a great example of that. There's a lot of hype around lots of new chains, and then they kind of they get to an equilibrium status, and you've now got hundreds and hundreds of chains and networks. And I think for projects and DAOs, you just don't want to get siloed. You want to be cross-chain, you want to be multi-chain. And that's why we expanded beyond Berachain. We want to make sure that we are there to serve that need once people decide that they need to kind of grow beyond the initial chain that they kind of launched on. So it'll be interesting to see how interoperability more broadly in the blockchain space kind of evolves. But as a DAO, you kind of have to be interoperable with multi-chains as well. So that's quite interesting. And then third, we've kind of touched on this, I think, community engagement. It's been a problem since I joined. And I think unfortunately with human nature, voting on things, even when voting for governments, I mean, what was the last US election? It was like 50% of people voted, right? Like it's hard to get people incentivized to vote, even when it's for their own good, if I may say so. But I think that community engagement part is part of it. So you're always having to try and keep your community engaged. And that's why we created the incentivization feature as well. We want to try and push for that community engagement always, because without your community, your project dies. And I saw that firsthand at Pickle Finance as well. So yeah, those would be the kind of three things that I'm seeing that are big problems for DAOs at the moment.
So there's interesting moments you mentioned incentivizing. So we know that probably people hate voting because it's better to keep sitting silent, and just because of the culture probably in the countries of the Western world where people got used to vote for governments, and the countries of other world, people have autocracies and dictatorship. They don't get used to vote. So probably
yes.
That's not culturally implemented. But so you opened the opportunity, the need to incentivize people for voting. This is kind of interesting. So your resort suggests that you advocate for, our resort suggests that you need advocate for incentivizing voting. So could you explain, in addition to my thought on that, your reasoning why we need to incentivize people voting in DAOs, educated people voting in DAOs, active people voting in DAOs? Any potential ethical concerns here don't you find here? So give out your thoughts on that.
No, yeah, it's a great topic. I think this is one of the first things, the ethical concerns was something that we debated a lot when we decided to come up with this feature initially with QuickSnap. But I mean, I'll start with kind of like our reasoning of the why. As I mentioned, you know, the whole point of decentralization is that you have multi actors and you don't have one point of control, right? And currently I've thought about this for a long time. Currently the only way in DeFi, in a decentralized governance world, that you can get things done is through multiple voices being heard and coming to an agreement. And the best way we know how to do that as humans at the moment is through voting, right? So to be able to do that at scale is really hard. You have some of the biggest DAOs in the world, like MakerDAO. They tried to really solve this decentralized governance problem, and they still have issues, right? Like they had single points of failure with founders and early kind of advocates being able to sway votes and sway common thinking within the DAO because they held so much power. And so it's not new that there's sort of like lobbying and all sorts of shenanigans going on for when it comes to these votes. So we thought, well, I guess the best freedom of speech is money, and so people should be putting money where their mouth is in some respects. And if a vote really matters, why not incentivize that vote and allow for more engagement, allow for a project in the DAO to move forward, and to actually continue operating. Because I've seen, as I said with Pickle Finance, a community gets disengaged, the DAO gets disengaged, and a project dies. So we think this is a really foundational cornerstone to DeFi and decentralized governance. And I completely understand the ethical concerns. You can definitely have sort of bad actors. In comments, you can have bad actors, but again, it depends. We're very good at finding value in the crypto space, and I think if a vote really is worth a lot of money, someone will find, what that net present value is and actually be able to price it accordingly, right? So if there is a bad actor, you'd hope that the good actor understands how much that vote is worth, and then they pledge on the other end of that vote, right? So crypto and blockchain just brings about the financialization of everything, and so it's also just an interesting thought experiment. But yeah, I can totally understand the ethical concerns. To be honest, I would not want governments to incentivize voting, but that's maybe a different topic for a different day. But I think within the crypto space, as I said, it's all built on financial flows, and so why not base the decentralized governance portion on that too? So yeah, we've seen good uptick of the product, and in some areas of Bearavote, it's still taking. If I'll be honest, it's still taking a bit of time for people to get, I think, their heads wrapped around incentivizing voting. But look, if we want to take off as a community, as an industry, I think DAOs have to succeed, and the best way they can succeed is through engagement and people voting and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, now we see we deal with a very broad a scope of some bizarre solutions, some very fascinating solutions of different cultural methods in Web3 in conjunction with Web2 and even non-Web technologies. And one of the strangest things for me in the DAO space is the efforts of some participants to connect, I would say, to push, to press the DAO framework with it, which is by default decentralized and has been created for decentralized non-grounded solution. They try to push it into current legal frameworks in such the best jurisdictions. And some countries, like in the US, probably they created jurisdictions for DAO. So probably this is a confusing sum of frameworks, but this is how the world evolves. What are your thoughts on this interesting legal experiment of incorporating DAOs into legal frameworks? Does decentralized Web3 space need such a practice? I wonder.
So this is a fascinating question, Eugene, and it's one that, to be honest, I'm not 100% on. I think in an ideal world, right, you would have some, let's say the United Nations worked, but you would have some cross-country standard for how you deal with DAOs, because I'm joining from Europe. Eugene, I'm not sure where you're joining from, but we have team members here at Devo and the west coast of the US. We have some in Central Asia. So, like we are forming a team, a company, multinational, and you've then got all these different legal frameworks that we abide by. And so if you do not have a framework that goes cross country, I don't know if it will necessarily work, but I do think it is needed. I truly, truly believe in DAOs and the power of DAOs. When I first started at Pickle, I found it so crazy that, I was able to join this ragtag bunch of people who I didn't know across the world. I didn't even know what their faces or maybe even their real names were. And we all were fighting for like this common goal of trying to make Pickle better. I thought it was amazing. But, we ended up kind of, I've seen this before. There are bad actors in DAOs and core teams, and it's hard to fight against that without contracts and legal frameworks to protect all parties. So on one hand, I do think we need some sort of legal framework, and I'm a true believer in the law, and I think correct legal frameworks can promote innovation and not hinder it. But I do think piecemeal efforts across the globe will probably fail. So it's a really tough one. Honestly, it's one of the key questions that I think, and as an industry, we have to grapple with as we go forward. But I mean, we'll see. I think the US will probably be a leader in the space, and maybe everyone else will follow. But let's see.
Okay, I think that we don't have to talk about countries, jurisdictions, and these traditional fiat things in decentralized space, because it's a completely different framework. But this is how the world evolved. This is how the technology is so young. It existed for 15 years already. And who knows what things and what conjunctions and constructions we will see in the nearest future. But let me ask you about one of the aspects of voting. Some DAO members don't have tokens, fungible tokens, they have NFTs. Any solutions, any plans to support voting for NFT holders as well? Probably.
Yes. Yeah. So we support ERC 721 and other like Bitcoin NFT standards like ordinals and runes. So we have many NFT projects. We have many NFT projects on Devo and on Berachain who use our spaces. And so if you have a NFT community, NFT DAO, we support being able to vote with those NFTs. Actually, you can do multi kind of token. So if you are if you're a project who has a token and an NFT, we allow for voting, and we allow you to set different weights for each of those different assets as well. And that can be multi-chain as well. I think that's one of the really cool things is we allow you to kind of set how you want the space to be set up in terms of voting weight across the different tokens you have cross-chain. So it's very kind of customizable to whatever solutions you have and what you need.
Historically, Envelop is always a DAO. It's first ever DAO, we call it first ever DAO, dedicated to smart NFTs. And one of the questions I previously talked to you before our recording is that we invented a solution for DAO members in the form of fossil-bound tokens, which Vitalik Buterin absolutely allowed. But just connected to a DAO member, it's impossible to move it to somewhere. And this token may consist of reputation of his transaction. So you may program this token. So how would you think? Is that solution probably good for DAOs, for DAO creators to collect reputations, which is publicly seen on the blockchain, because everybody may look into this so-called token and see this reputation collected in this programmable token, and DAO member cannot move this token. It's tied with him forever. What are your thoughts on that solution?
Yeah, I 100% think reputation and soulbound tokens are like a huge step forward in the space. It's really interesting when you think about it when it comes to how that interacts with voting, right? Like you could imagine a couple worlds. One where someone votes and your vote upticks your reputation, especially if, say, you voted on a proposal. Say you were voting yes on a proposal and yes was the winning answer. Your reputation goes up more than someone who votes no, perhaps, which is a really interesting wrapper for then incentivization. But also, if you think about the world today, right, like let's go there. Let's talk about government kind of politics and voting. Certain people have certain weight when they say that they're going to vote for something, and so being able to see on chain, not just in a currently we still live in like a Web 2 world sometimes in the Web 3 world, right? Like we still use forums where you don't really know who the person is behind behind the mask. You don't really know what their true incentives are, what they really want. If you have reputation on chain and you have them saying, oh, we should do XYZ for whatever reason, you're able to then have more trust in them, right? Like we build a trustless society without truly having to know the person on the other side. So I think the reputation aspect added within these tokens for DAOs is revolutionary. It really is. And I think, as I said, when you merge it with the voting space, some really interesting kind of Legos start to get formed in the DeFi sense. So yeah, I think what Envelope is doing is great, and I think the new token standards are awesome. And we haven't seen much of it yet, obviously, as mentioned before in our previous conversations with our tool, but it's something we're really keen to explore.
Well, so that'll be another question for another great research of how to combine voting and reputation and DAO evolvement, because it is absolutely interesting thing for anyone who wants to create something unique in this world. So finally, Mas, is there anything you would like to add, any statements, any call to actions in the end of our great talk, which we delivered great content to our audience? So anything you want to say?
Yeah, well, I mean, as I think I said this before, if you're a network, like we'd love to work with you. We'd love to embed governance deeper into your ecosystem. So please do reach out to Devote. You can find us on X. We have a Discord. You can also find us on all the socials basically. If you're a project, also please reach out, see what we can offer you. We're always here to help. And then if you're an individual, I mean, keep voting, keep pushing your DAOs to engage with the community through voting. I think it's a key part of why we're a part of this ecosystem. Is decentralization is the future. But otherwise, Eugene, it's been amazing to be here. I've really enjoyed this conversation and working with you as well. So thank you so much for taking the time to have me and Devote on.
Well, let me remind Roman Empire, which I know you love, and let's say like Roman Empire. So DAOs thrive and enrich this world forever. Let it be. Let it be. It's your era. So thank you very much. Mas, head of business development of Devote, has joined our podcast today. I'm using CryptoMC. Please like, share, subscribe. If you are a DAO member, pay attention on Devote. Needless to say that all the links are in the description. Go find, vote, use tokens, and create DAO ecosystem, join DAOs. It is very easy to join a DAO and to become a successful and experienced and sophisticated, I would say, web player if you use to create and understand DAO practices. Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned and bye-bye. Blockchain. BLOCK chain. Digital money, smart contracts, NFT, IDO, decentralization, transparency. So many opportunities, but so many challenges. Some financial manipulators, by their actions, confuse blockchain solutions and block their development. The idea that the blockchain should bring copyright and royalties protection to the next level is quite old, but the realizations of these ideas are not perfect at all. There is another problem of determining the value of a particular cryptocurrency or NFT. These and other problems need to be solved. Fortunately, the blockchain infrastructure is evolving. My name is E, Mr. E, and I represent the Envelope project. Many things have already been invented in the blockchain today. Tokens, smart contracts, platforms for creating your own coins, NFTs, exchanges for buying, selling, and exchanging all these blockchain resources. Envelope is another step in the development of crypto technologies. The protocol that works with NFT and cryptocurrencies. The idea is simple but disruptive. Let's assume you have an NFT, Bitcoin and Ethereum. Using the Envelop protocol, you can wrap the original NFT accompanied with several tokens. Technically, you get a similar NFT, but what is the breakthrough here? Once wrapped, the token has a number of additional features that were not available before. The minimal cost appears. It is provided with coins wrapped together with NFT. An asset wrapped with Envelop has a number of properties that allow the original author to receive royalties from the resale of that asset. Various rules can be applied to the wrapped token. For example, a lock period for unwrapping. It secures the asset till the determined moment or safeguards it from speculation during the hype period. At the same time, wrapped tokens can be transferred and traded. These are just some of the scenarios for using Envelop. NFTs become more popular, and the tools provided by Envelop expand the opportunities of NFTs utilization. Wide application possibilities are achieved due to the fact that, in addition to the protocol, the project includes a number of subsystems. The protocol provides functions wrapping and unwrapping. Oracle Mechanics provides asset valuation using analytical algorithms. Index provides a summary assessment of several NFT assets with the common criteria. The project has its own token, which connects all elements of the system. Altogether, this is Envelop, a tool in the blockchain world for building modern and secure systems in various fields. Find more info about the project on the website. Envelop. Make your NFT valuable. Just practical, no hype.